The night was so still that Sarah could hear the vending machine in the lobby ticking as it cooled. Sedona lay outside the glass doors like a painting, dark red rock, a thin silver line of road, and a sky full of quiet stars. The museum was closed. The last visitor had left 3 hours ago. The lights were on low, set to night mode. Only the main hallway and the small central gallery still glowed. Sarah Whitman stood in front of the glass case at the center of that gallery. Inside it sat the crystal. It was the size of a child's head and clear as ice. Its surfaces were sharp and wrong, like geometry that did not belong on Earth. Her mother had called it the heart of the museum. To tourists it was a strange rock, good for a photo and a shrug. To Sarah it was something stranger, something that never quite felt like it was only stone. Tonight, for the first time in 40 years, it began to hum. The sound was not in the air. It was in her teeth, in the bones near her ears. She felt it before she heard it, a low, steady tone, like distant machinery under the ground. The crystal's inner lines shifted. For decades it had looked like frozen lightning, thin white fractures held inside a clear shell. Now those fractures began to move, sliding past each other in slow, careful paths, like parts in a puzzle box. Light from the ceiling hit it and bent, curving around its edges instead of passing straight through. The wall clock on the far side of the gallery stuttered. The second hand jerked, jumped back, then lurched forward as if catching up. Its soft ticking stopped being regular. Sometimes 2 ticks came too close together. Sometimes there was a gap. Sarah stared. Her mouth went dry. Shadows on the wall shifted without their sources moving. The frame of a painting cast a dark line, 3 degrees to the right of where it should have been. The crystal's own shadow stretched and shrank, like the light was changing, though the bulbs were steady. Far above, in high orbit, an array of defense satellites turned their silent dishes toward the outer dark. At Peterson Space Force Base, Colonel James Walker stepped into the main operations room. As alarms turned from green to yellow, holographic displays flickered into life. A map of the solar system snapped into focus, then zoomed toward the edge. Dozens of tiny markers appeared past the orbit of Neptune. They had not been there an hour ago. Identification, Walker asked. Unknown contacts, the sensor officer said. They dropped out of FTL something. No drive signature matches any human engine. They're braking hard. Course plots show all converging on Earth, sir. The markers curved inward, neat and patient, shedding speed as they came. At Caltech, Dr. Leo Grant rubbed tired eyes and stared at his own screen. He was running simulations of warped space-time, equations about how gravity might bend time if shaped on purpose. For years it had been only math, models of causality anchors, pure theory. On the corner of his screen, a small live feed from the Global Defense Network popped up. Unknown probes, incoming. A live map showed their slowing orbits, all sliding toward a tight shell around Earth. Grant frowned and glanced back at his simulation. Something was wrong. The curve on the graph that should have been clean and smooth now had a strange kink. A new input. Some distant mass was pulling on his equations. His model behaved as if something nearby was bending space-time more than Earth itself. He froze the data. The shape of that bend was the same shape now forming inside a small museum case in Sedona. In the quiet gallery, Sarah stepped closer to the glass. Her breath fogged the surface for a moment, then cleared. The crystal's inner lines formed a changing pattern. She did not know physics, but she saw cycles in it, motions that repeated, then shifted, then repeated again, as if the object inside was testing itself. Outside, starlight over the desert seemed slightly wrong, as if the sky's depth had changed. The alarms in space kept rising. The probes reached the edge of the Earth-Moon system and spread out, slowing even more. They were small, less than 100 meters across, but they moved with precision no human craft could match. Each took a place at a set distance, forming a vast, invisible shell around the planet. They did not transmit. They did not respond to calls. They only watched. Back in Sedona, the humming in Sarah's bones grew clearer. Her watch read 10:14 p.m. The wall clock read 10:09. Her phone said 10:17. They had never disagreed before. Something heavy pressed on the air, like the moment before a storm. Except the sky outside was clear and full of stars. The crystal was not art. It was a machine. It was waking up, and far beyond any human station, in the direction of several distant stars, something vast and unseen adjusted its gaze toward the small blue world that had been sitting beside a quiet causality anchor for 40 years, as if it owned it. Mornings in the museum started with dust. Sarah walked from room to room with a soft brush and a small vacuum, moving past glass cases, old photographs and models of ancient rock formations. The air smelled like paper and stone and lemon cleaner. Outside, the early sun poured over the red mesas and turned the sky pale gold. The museum had been her mother's dream, a little private place, half geology, half local history, hidden off the main road near Sedona. Tourists who came for the trails would sometimes wander in, pay a few credits, and walk slowly past the displays. Most did not know what they were looking at. To them, the exhibits were just rocks, fossils, old tools from early settlers, faded maps with notes in careful handwriting. To Sarah, there were lives, frozen moments, old choices. She took her time with each case. Her mother had always said, everything here has already been thrown away once by someone. That's why it's here now, because it needs someone to keep it from being thrown away again. The crystal was the center of that duty. It sat in the Oddities and Unknowns gallery, in its own round glass case. A small plaque read, Unclassified Silica Formation found 2074. Mogollon Rim Composition, Silica, Trace Elements Structure, Anomalous, Understudy Possible Natural Geode Variant. The words had been written by a geologist from the 2070s, who no longer answered emails. The understudy part had been true for about 6 months. Then interest had faded, funding had dried up, the crystal had stayed. Tourists now joked about it. Looks like alien tech, they would say, snapping photos. Maybe it will turn on. It had not turned on, not for Sarah's entire life. Her mother had told her stories, though, about the day it was found. A hiking group had seen a faint glow far down in a narrow canyon. They thought it was someone's dropped gear. Instead, wedged in a crack in the rock, half fused with sandstone, was the clear, many-sided object. It had not been warm. It had not been dangerous. It had just been there like a tooth of glass jammed into the earth. The first geologists who studied it said its internal pattern did not match any known natural crystal. It looked like something had grown in a very steady field, like a plant in perfect sunlight, but the sunlight here had been something else. Still, since it did not react to light, heat, cold, or electric fields, and since no one could prove it was artificial, they called it a strange but natural formation and moved on. The big universities had bigger mysteries to chase. The crystal ended up in a box, then in a drawer, then, through a chain of donations and favors, in the hands of Sarah's mother, who promised to give it a good home, and she had. For 40 years, it had sat inside this case, under soft lights, with its simple plaque. Sarah paused in front of it now, brush in hand. "Good morning," she said out of habit. Heat shimmered on the other side of the glass. For years, she had told herself that was just an effect of the lighting. The angles of the crystal bent light in odd ways. Sometimes the room behind it seemed closer or farther away. She wiped away a thin line of dust at the base of the case. Her reflection stared back at her. Dark hair pulled into a practical bun. Faint lines at the corners of her eyes. Museum logo on a well-worn shirt. She did not feel old at 38, but the building sometimes did. Business had slowed since the big climate repair projects had finished. People felt less urgency about the planet now. They took more trips off-world, up to the orbital habitats or to the budding cities on the Moon and Mars. Local museums in desert towns mattered less. Still, enough visitors came to keep the lights on. A school group every other week, retirees on slow tours, couples on weekend getaways. She did not want more than that. She wanted the place to survive. By late morning, the first visitors arrived. By late morning, the first visitors arrived. By late morning, the first visitors arrived. Sarah took tickets at the front desk, then circled back to tidy brochures, answer questions, and quietly adjust the temperature in the gallery, where rare paper documents sat. Her day had a gentle rhythm, except over the past month, small things had started to feel off. It began with the cameras. Every room in the museum had a tiny security camera near the ceiling, feeding into a central console in the back office. The system recorded in quiet loops, keeping about 30 days of footage before overwriting the oldest parts. 3 weeks ago, Sarah had sat down to check a missing jacket report. A visitor said they had left a jacket in the oddities gallery and wanted to know if someone had taken it. She pulled up the video feed for that hour. The footage played normally at first. People entering, pausing, reading the plaque about the crystal, taking photos. Then, near the end of the hour, the time code on the bottom of the screen jumped back by 18 seconds. The picture did not glitch. There was no cut or blur. It just went back. The same woman walked into the frame again. The same child pointed at the crystal again. The same tired father checked his watch again. Sarah frowned and checked the system log. No error flags. She called the small company that handled the museum's cheap security system. "It's probably a software update," the technician said. "Sometimes the time server corrects things. Should be fine." Except the main museum clock, which was synced to the same satellite time, had not shown any sudden correction that day. She let it go, chalked it up to a minor glitch. A few days later, the drift came back. This time she was closing up. The hallways were empty. The cameras showed still rooms. She skimmed through footage on fast forward, just checking for any late guests or forgotten bags. In the oddities gallery, again, the time code jerked backward. 12 seconds this time. The scene rewound with perfect smoothness and then continued. No missing frames, no static. She checked the other rooms. All normal. She checked the external clock, still linked to the global time network, still steady. Her stomach tightened. She printed the log and wrote on it in pen. Time drift, check crystal. That was how her notes started. She kept a thin paper notebook in the desk drawer now, separate from the digital logs. In it she wrote dates, times, and short comments. She did not show this notebook to anyone. Not yet. June 12, camera oddities gallery jumped back 18 sec. No glitch in other feeds. June 15, same room jumped back 12 sec. Same type of smooth rewind. June 19, floor felt heavier near crystal. Personal? That last note was from 2 nights later. She had stayed late, relabeling a small display about ancient riverbeds. The air system had turned to night mode. The rest of the town was falling quiet. She locked the front doors and walked one last round. In the oddities gallery, as she stepped toward the crystal, her legs felt just a bit more tired than they should have. There was a tug, as if the floor had gained a tiny amount of gravity. It was so subtle that she almost ignored it. But when she stepped back toward the hallway, the feeling eased. She tested it, walking in and out of an invisible circle around the crystal's case. It was like walking through a shallow bowl. Her body knew it even if her brain doubted it. The next morning her knees hurt. She blamed the old building and getting older. Still, she wrote it down. Her days continued. The world outside went on. Orbital news feeds talked of a new telescope array at Neptune. Mars greenhouses had passed some milestone. A fusion plant near the equator had set a record for power output. People argued online about art AIs and voting rights for certain types of synthetic minds. No one talked about anything strange in Sedona. High above Earth, the Orbital Defense Network watched the sky for large rocks, rogue engines, and slow ships drifting in from the outer system. Most days, the network showed nothing but normal traffic and radiation storms from the sun. Colonel James Walker had worked in that system for 20 years. He trusted its main sensors the way sailors once trusted the horizon. He did not see the early hints in the data, a slight bend in the paths of minor debris, a micro delay in the timing of certain radio pulses between satellites when they passed over Arizona. The software flagged them as noise and moved on. At Caltech, Dr. Leo Grant stared at graphs and thought about space-time. He was not famous, but in his small corner of theoretical physics, his name carried weight. He had spent the last decade building a model of something he called a causality anchor, a device that could hold a region of space-time steady, not flat like a sheet of paper, but stable, like a calm lake instead of a stormy sea. In his model, such an anchor could smooth out chaotic gravity events. It could keep certain orbits from slowly drifting into disaster. It could make time flow more evenly over long distances. No one knew how to build such a thing. He did it in code instead. He wrote equations, fed in fake inputs, and watched how the virtual universe reacted. His models were sensitive. 2 weeks before the probes arrived, he noticed a strange pattern in his test runs. He had set up a map of local space out to 100 light-years, based on real star and planet data. The math kept showing a small, concentrated bend in space-time somewhere near Sol, not at the Sun itself, not at Jupiter or any major planet, somewhere a few hundred kilometers above the surface of Earth. He assumed he had made a mistake. He checked for rounding errors and bad inputs. He checked the mass of the Moon, the exact orbit of the ISS-3 station, the density of the upper atmosphere. The bend did not go away. It was as if a tiny point in space was pressing down on the grid of his math, making a dimple deeper than the gravity of a small asteroid. He mentioned it in a chat with a colleague. Probably a bug, they said, or some military hardware they forgot to tell you about. Leo laughed, but it bothered him. His code did not invent points like that. He wrote in his own notes, "Local anomaly. If real, about 0.0004 Earth masses in effect, confined within tens of meters. Impossible. Check." He did not think of Sedona. Sarah, capturing another note in her notebook, also did not think of some physicist in California. June 23. Local temp near crystal case 1. 0.3 C, higher than ambient. No change on thermostat. IR camera shows nothing special. She had borrowed a small handheld thermal viewer from a friend in town who did ghost tours, half as a joke. They had walked the museum together one slow afternoon, scanning for cold or hot spots. Most rooms were plain. The walls and cases showed even tones. Old stone stayed cooler than the air. Electronic panels around the front desk glowed warm. When they aimed the viewer at the crystal case, the screen showed a slight halo of higher temperature around the glass, as if the air half a meter around it had warmed. The crystal itself did not show up as hot. It stayed a calm, blank color. The space around it, though, looked like a faint shell, probably the lights, her friend had said, or reflection from your body heat. They tested that, turned the lights off, stepped back. The faint shell stayed. Her friend laughed it off, made a joke about aliens, then left. Sarah was left standing alone in the half-dark, the thermal viewer in hand, staring at a pale ring around the crystal. She wrote it down. June 25th. Personal perception. Ticking in jaw when near crystal. Like tiny motor. Stops when I leave room. Her notebook filled with small observations. The cameras drifted again. The gravity ball feeling grew slightly stronger. Tiny items set near the case, pens, brochures, would sometimes slide a few millimeters over an hour, always toward the crystal, then stop. She did not have the words space-time curvature in her head. She only had strange and I should be careful. So she was. She checked the case's seals twice a day. She tested the locks. She made sure the climate controls worked. She did not put up any new signs or try to market the crystal as anything more than it had been. Outside, the town moved in its own slow orbit. Drones brought supplies in along low flight paths. Electric vans rolled tourists past Red Rock tours. The sky, crisscrossed with bright lines from orbital elevators and shuttle flights, stayed busy as ever. At night, Sarah sometimes walked out behind the museum and looked up. There was a faint square of darker darkness where a big solar shield in high orbit cast its shadow. The shield cooled big parts of the planet now, making heat waves less deadly. Farther up, tiny moving points showed where stations circled, where cargo ships coasted to the moon. She felt small under all that human machinery, but also calm. People had built these things. People had fixed broken climate systems. People had learned to hold currents of plasma inside fusion cores. If there was something strange in her museum, humans could understand it, she hoped. 2 days before the crystal woke fully, she noticed something new. June 27, star reflection on case glass. Does not match actual sky. Check again. It was late. The museum lights were off, but a little glow from the lobby spilled into the gallery. She walked past the case and caught a glimpse of the night sky reflected on its curved surface. She paused. The stars in the reflection looked slightly wrong. The pattern did not match the slice of sky she could see through the high windows. A bright point that should have been on the left was shifted right. A familiar triangle of stars was stretched. She turned off the lobby lights completely and went back. In the dark, the crystal case caught only a faint mix of sky shine and the weak glow from exit signs. Now the reflections lined up. She told herself she had been tired. Her eyes had played tricks on her. Still, In the notebook, she wrote it down. Somewhere deep in the defense network's data storage, a log file collected microsecond timing errors between satellites as they passed over Arizona. The system tagged them as minor atmospheric interference and did no more. In Leo Grant's simulation, the ghost mass near Earth twisted slightly, then returned to its previous level. In Sedona, the quiet anchor waited. On the night it finally hummed, Sarah had the museum to herself again. The vending machine ticked softly. The wall clock stuttered its strange, uneven ticks. Her notebook in the back office lay open to a fresh page. June 29, 2211. Crystal has started to move. By the time Sarah felt the hum in her bones, the first unknown probes had already started breaking. Out beyond Neptune, the stars were cold and sharp. A thin scatter of ice and rock drifted slowly in the dark, leftovers from the birth of the solar system. No human ship went there without careful planning and months of preparation. The things that appeared just beyond that region arrived in less than an hour. The outer network saw it first. A deep-range gravity sensor, set in a quiet orbit near Neptune to watch for wandering comets, recorded a sudden spike. For 7 seconds, as if from nowhere, space in a small volume twisted hard. Then 33 objects were just there. They were not rocks. Their shapes did not match any known natural body. To the few cameras that could see that far, they looked like smooth, dark seeds, each about 80 meters long, with no visible engines, no flares, no chemical burns. The software flagged them as untracked mass objects and forwarded the alert to Central Command. On the other side of the inner system, a small probe near Mars noticed something else. Space near the new arrivals had ripples, tiny fluctuations in gravity and radiation that no normal ship produced. The probe did not have the AI power to guess what that meant. It sent raw data back to Earth. On Earth, Colonel James Walker's regular night shift turned very different. He was halfway through a cup of coffee when the main alert board turned yellow, then orange, then flashed red in 3 separate sectors. "Talk to me," he said, setting the cup down. The main operations screen at Peterson filled with icons. The solar system came up, pushed by the AI assistant. "Incoming unregistered objects," the system announced in a calm, neutral voice. "Outer system sensors report 33 bodies, estimated mass between 10,000 and 20,000 tons each, non-ballistic trajectories." "Where did they come from?" Walker asked. "Unknown," said the system. "They appeared within sensor range, without detectable acceleration from beyond. Possible FTL transition." A cold line ran down his spine. Humans did not have faster-than-light travel. Humans were not supposed to have anything that could just appear like that. He zoomed in. The icons showed the 33 bodies lined up in a loose cluster, then curving inward, paths shifting to aim toward the sun. "Project their trajectories," he said. Blue lines sprang out ahead of each object, curling curves that sank toward the inner system. They all pointed at a narrow band of space around Earth's orbit. "ETA?" Walker asked. "Based on current deceleration, nearest approach to Earth orbit, 52 hours. 2 days. Any transmissions?" he asked. "Scanning," the system said. Lines of code ran down a side panel. No radio, laser, neutrino, or gravitic communications detected. No response to standard regional ping. Walker frowned. He switched views. The orbital defense network, a ring of satellites and platforms around Earth, showed its own map. Incoming objects had been added as bright red warnings at the edge of the view. In lower orbit, laser defense grids spun up. Kinetic interceptor platforms began to warm their drives. Autonomous guard drones filed out of hangars and took up new positions. "For now, classify them as unknown probes," Walker said, forcing his voice to stay level. "We have no proof they are hostile, but I want all threat branches modeled." Models lit up. Shell formation, impact pattern, close observation. The AI tagged the most likely as observation shell, 62%. "Get me the Science Council," he added, "and someone call Caltech. Grant's people. If this is what it looks like, we may need their input." On the other side of the country, Leo Grant stared at a different set of graphs. He had just rerun his local space-time model, trying to track the strange fake mass near Earth. The new run looked worse. The bend was deeper now, and its shape had changed. Instead of a simple dimple, it had become a complex pattern of folds, almost like a knot. It pulsed slowly, rising and falling with a period of about 3 seconds. He overlaid the pattern from a run 3 months ago. The difference made his mouth go dry. Something near Earth was growing more active, something that acted in his equations like a device designed to control gravity and time. His pad glowed. An incoming call from the Space Defense Science Liaison Office. He hesitated only a moment, then took it. "Dr. Grant," a woman's voice said. "This is Major Lee, Defense Liaison. We have an active situation and need your expertise. Unknown objects in the outer system and some odd field readings around Earth. Can you come to the secure line?" "Unknown objects," he repeated. 33 so far, she said, forming approach vectors to Earth. Potential shell formation. Also, our models suggest a localized space-time abnormality near the North American West Quadrant. Your name is on the causality anchor papers. We think it may be related. Leo's stomach clenched. "Send me the data," he said. "I'll go to the secure room." As he walked down the quiet campus hallway to the reinforced lab, his mind raced. Causality anchors were pure theory. If something out there was making his models move, had someone built one? Had some lab put hardware into orbit without telling him? Or was it something else? He thought of the deep sky surveys that had hinted at star systems with impossibly stable orbits. He thought of odd timing patterns in pulsars that did not quite fit natural models. Some had joked, in half-serious tones, that maybe someone out there already used anchor tech. If those someones had just arrived. He pushed the thought away and focused on the data which now streamed onto his secure console. Meanwhile, in Sedona, Sarah did not know anything about incoming probes or defense alerts. She only knew that the crystal was alive under its glass. The hum rose and fell in her jaw and spine, like a slow, steady engine. The inner lines in the crystal shifted in patterns that almost felt like breathing. The air a meter around the case felt thicker. Her hand slowed as she waved it, as if pushing through syrup. She backed away a few steps. The wall clock's second hand ticked forward 3 times in rapid bursts, then stopped, then ticked once, then hesitated again. Her phone vibrated with an alert. Global Defense Status Level 2, Advisory. She glanced at it, saw the headline about unidentified deep space probes, and felt the world tilt for an entirely different reason. Probes, outer system, shell around Earth. She looked at the crystal. The patterns inside it sped up. Light bunched and stretched around its edges, bending in small arcs that did not match any lamp glare she had ever seen. For one moment, its clear surface seemed to hold a tiny map of the sky, but the stars were wrong, arranged in a grid she did not recognize. Her notebook in the office called to her. Instead, she walked closer. "Stop," she said, half to herself, half to the thing. "You're going to break something." The hum did not stop. On a farm in Kansas, a cow looked up from grazing as the sun seemed to slow in the sky, then resume. Kids playing a game on a station in low Earth orbit shouted as their ball curved oddly, missing a goal even though the throw was perfect. In a lab in Tokyo, an atomic clock recorded a tiny skip less than a nanosecond, but enough to show up against the global standard. Tiny distortions spread over the planet, just noticeable enough to be weird. The common center, hidden in the math of defense systems and Leo's models, sat in a quiet room in Sedona. At Peterson, the incoming probes continued their graceful fall inward. "Update?" Walker asked. "Objects are decelerating at high G," the sensor officer said. "Non-human tolerance levels. Trajectories are adjusting for a complex orbital solution." "What kind of solution?" Walker pressed. "Current models suggest they will not enter low orbit," the AI responded. "Projected positions indicate a loose spherical shell, approximately 800,000 kilometers average radius around Earth's center." Walker did the quick math. "That was about twice the distance to the moon. They'll ring us," he said. "Like a fence, like a sensor net," someone else muttered. "Any change in EM output?" he asked. "Still no transmission, sir," the officer said. "But we are picking up a field." "What kind of field?" The main display split. A ghostly mesh of lines appeared, showing the membrane of gravity and time around Earth and the incoming probes. New patterns pulsed between the objects and the planet. "It looks like they are measuring our local space-time," the AI said, tuning to it. "Tuning?" Walker repeated. "Yes, adjusting their internal fields to match, minimizing disturbance, similar to stealth mode in human ships but far more advanced. Also, the display zoomed in on Earth. A faint bulge appeared over North America. A vector pointed down. Source of main anomaly. Surface location, North American West Continent. Coordinates pending refinement. Estimated area of effect, radius 50 meters. Intensity, rising. Walker stared. "What is at that location?" he asked. "Cross-checking," the AI said. A list popped up. A town, a road, a small industrial zone, a nature preserve, and a museum. "Flag that site," Walker ordered. "Inform local authorities, but quietly. I want a science team and a security unit on site within 6 hours. No panic yet. We don't know what we're dealing with." On his secure console, Leo saw the same marker blink on. The coordinates matched the center of the anomaly in his own model. He overlaid his causality anchor equations on the fresh field data coming from the orbital network. The fit was almost perfect. "This is impossible," he said softly. Major Lee's voice sounded in his ear. "Dr. Grant, it's not a natural bend," Leo said. "This isn't some weird mountain density or hidden mass. The pattern matches what a designed anchor would do. Someone down there has something that is shaping local space-time in a very specific way." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means," he said slowly, "that something on Earth is doing the job that in my theories only a causality anchor could do. It is holding a region of space-time very still, and whatever is coming in from out there seems to recognize that." On screen, the 33 probes adjusted their paths again. Their accelerations were smooth, graceful. They did not wobble or waste motion. They arrived near the orbit of Mars, then began to fan out relative to each other, like seeds in a growing sphere. They shed more speed, moving into complex curves that would, in about a day and a half, place them at evenly spaced points around Earth. "Can we shoot them?" a general asked in the shared call that now linked defense, science, and government. "We can try," someone else said, "but we don't know what they're made of. We don't know if they'll see it as an attack and respond." "And they haven't attacked us," Major Lee pointed out. "They haven't touched anything. They've just appeared and started forming this shell. They're looking at something," Leo said. "And based on the way their internal fields match the anomaly, I think they're looking at the same thing my models see. The anomaly on the surface," Walker said. "The source. The anchor," Leo said. "Anchor," the general repeated. "Are you telling me there is some kind of alien machine on our planet, and those are its owners coming to check their property?" In Sedona, Sarah's phone buzzed again. This time it was a local alert. "State emergency services. Unusual seismic and atmospheric data detected in your area. Remain calm. Report any strong shaking or visual anomalies." She laughed once, a short, sharp sound. "Visual anomalies." She looked at the crystal. The world around it had started to bend in clear, undeniable ways. The edge of the glass case on the far side seemed narrower than the edge nearest her. The tiles on the floor around it curved in a slight bowl. If she dropped a brochure from waist height, it did not fall straight down. It curved toward the case just a few centimeters, then hit. The hum vibrated in her teeth. She stepped back toward the office, grabbed her notebook, and came back. Her hands shook as she wrote, "June 29th, 2226. Crystal active. Inner pattern moving. Strong gravity oddities. Time drift visible on clock. Field radius 3 men. Feels like center of something larger." She did not write, "And I feel like someone is staring through it," but she thought it. Far above, the probes adjusted one last time. Now closer. Some telescopes could make out a bit more detail. The objects were not smooth after all. Their surfaces had fine lines, like muscles or vines frozen in metal. On their front ends, facing Earth, each had a kind of dark lens. Not glass, but some black material that seemed to drink in light. No thrusters fired. No reaction mass shone, yet their speeds changed in ways that fit no known engine. "They're bending space-time around themselves," Leo said, watching the numbers. "They're surfing their own gravity. That's why we don't see any drives." "Can you talk to them?" Major Lee asked. "I can shout at them," he said. "Whether they hear is another question." The global network sent messages on every channel humans knew how to use. Radio, laser, tight beam neutrino pulses, simple math sequences, prime numbers, images of the solar system, a map. No answer came, only the soft, silent curve of the 33 probes, folding into the beginnings of a huge sphere around Earth. In the emergency call, voices overlapped. Could they be old machines? Leftovers? What if they're automatic cleaners? They see an out-of-place thing and remove it. What if they're here to protect that anchor? Someone else said. Protect it from what? A military voice snapped. From us. In the museum, Sarah's overhead lights flickered. For a moment, the only light came from outside. Starlight and the faint, traveling glint of an orbital platform. The crystal's inner lines flared, bright without any source. For a second, shapes that might have been star maps or diagrams of orbits shone inside it. Then the lights came back on. Her heart pounded. Her phone pinged with an incoming call. Unknown number, government code. She stared at it, then answered. Sarah Whitman? A calm voice asked. Yes, she said. This is Agent Ruiz with the Federal Science and Security Office. We are seeing unusual data centered on your building. We need you to stay calm and stay on the line. A team is on its way. She looked at the crystal, then at the dark outside, then at the faint, barely felt tug in the air. What is it? There was a pause. Papers rustled on the other end. Or maybe that was just her imagination. We're not sure yet, Agent Ruiz said carefully. But it looks like something in your museum is affecting gravity and time. And something out there has noticed. Sarah swallowed. Out? Where? She asked. Far above, beyond the bright dots of human stations, beyond the moon, the 33 probes continued to slow, turning their dark lenses toward the planet. They're here, Leo said softly in his secure room, half to himself. They followed the line. What line? Walker asked. The line of controlled causality, Leo said. Imagine someone set up a calm patch in the storm of space, stabilized lots of nearby stars using anchors. The fields from those anchors would connect like a plate, a local space-time plateau. If we've been sitting on one of the anchor points without knowing it, they might think. He did not finish. In about 30 hours, the AI cut in. The probes will reach their first station points. We expect minor disturbances in local fields as they tune fully to Earth's space-time. No direct contact predicted yet. On Earth, the first team scrambled. A VTOL craft lifted from a base 200 kilometers from Sedona, its dark wings cutting through clear night air. Inside, a mix of military security and scientists checked equipment, field sensors, portable atomic clocks, drones, armored suits. Their orders were simple and impossible. Go to Sedona. Find the source. Figure out what it is. Don't break it. In the museum, Sarah stayed beside the crystal. The vending machine in the lobby had stopped ticking. The wall clock showed a time that was now 4 minutes behind her phone. Her reflection in the case's glass had a slight lag, as if the light path from her face to her eyes had grown longer. Miss Whitman, Agent Ruiz asked through the phone. Can you describe what you're seeing right now? It's bending light, Sarah said, trying to keep her words calm and slow. Things behind it look twisted. The air feels thick. My watch and the wall clock don't match. And it feels like, I don't know, like the room is underwater and something is pushing from above. Leo, patched into the same call, listened hard. Ask her this, he said. Miss Whitman, has this object always been in your museum? Yes, she said. As long as I've been alive. It was my mother's favorite, trophy. Whatever you call it. Has Afshan anything like this before? He asked. No, she said. But for a few weeks, small things were wrong. Cameras jumping, gravity a bit stronger near it. I kept notes. You kept notes, Leo said. Good, those will help us a lot. Walker looked at the global map again. Earth turned slowly under the growing patterns of projected lines. The probe's curves wrapped tighter. The bulge of the anomaly over Sedona grew more pronounced, a small knot in the planet's field. Dr. Grant, Walker said, give it to me straight. What happens if that thing in Sedona shuts off, or is destroyed? Leo exhaled. In my models, an anchor keeps a region of space stable, he said. Not just here, but across many star systems connected by the same field. If it shuts off suddenly, the local space-time plateau it helps hold flat could deform. Orbits that have been gently supported could start to slip. Time rates that have been carefully matched could drift apart. At worst, it could start a chain reaction of small instabilities. In English, Walker said. In English, Leo said quietly. Nearby stars and their planets might get messier. Some orbits could decay faster. Some systems could become more chaotic. If there are civilizations out there depending on that stability, they could suffer, maybe collapse. Silence held the channel for a moment. "And if we leave it on?" Major Lee asked. "Then whoever built it can find it easily," Leo said. "They already have. They've sent at least 33 probes that are now locking onto its field pattern. Leaving it on sends a clear message. We're using your device and we're not stopping. In other words, the general said, we become part of their system, whether we like it or not." Sarah listened to this, feeling her world stretch. Her small museum, her mother's quiet pride, the dusty cases, the school children who pressed their noses to the glass, and this crystal, which she had dusted and joked about and greeted every morning, might be holding up the calm orbits of stars she had never seen. She looked at it again. The inner lines moved in a slow, steady cycle now, almost peaceful. Outside, the stars over Sedona were bright and sharp, but she knew that far beyond them, strange machines were taking aim and holding still. The conflict had arrived without a shot fired. On a small wooden stand, under glass, sat a device that might hold the lives of beings across the galaxy in balance. Above, silent probes from the dark formed a watching shell, and in between, a human planet, still fragile, had to decide how to live with a machine it had never asked for, but now could not ignore. The team from the air reached Sedona just before dawn. The VTOL slid down out of the dark, its engines humming in a deep, careful tone. The craft stayed high at first, circling. Inside, screens showed every kind of field reading the scientists could carry: gravity, magnetic lines, radio noise, time drift maps. All of them agreed on one thing. Something strong and strange sat exactly where a small private museum stood among scrub and red rock. "Field gradient is sharp," said Dr. Annika Bose, checking her tablet. She led the science part of the team, a thin woman in her 50s with keen, tired eyes. Radius about 30 meters for the main effect, with a tail reaching higher into the sky. "The core is dense. Define dense," said Captain Morales, head of the security unit. His armor suit clicked as he shifted. "Not mass dense," Bose said. "Curve dense. The amount of space-time bending in that small space is more than the rest of the town put together. Think of a bowling ball sitting in the middle of a mattress." "On it," Morales said. He tapped his helmet. "We go in quiet. Non-lethal only. If it's just a weird rock and a tired curator, we're not going to scare them more than needed." The VTOL touched down on the small pad behind the museum. Inside, Sarah sat in the lobby with Agent Ruiz and 2 local officers. The crystal hummed in the next room. She could feel it, like a thought at the edge of hearing. Ruiz had arrived with a calm face and a heavy briefcase full of devices. The local officers had set up a simple cordon outside, telling early morning walkers that there was a minor gas leak. Sarah's notebook lay open on her lap. She had shown it to Ruiz, who had scanned each page and sent copies to Leo and Dr. Bose's team. "You did well to write all this down," Ruiz had said. "It gives us a timeline." "I didn't know who would care," Sarah had said. "I almost felt silly." "Not silly," Ruiz said. "This is better than anything our own monitors caught at first." Now, when the VTOL doors opened and the new team came in, the air seemed to thicken further. Gravity sensors in Bo's bag beeped softly as they crossed the threshold. "Mims Whitman?" Bose asked, stepping forward and lowering her helmet. "I'm Dr. Bose. I'm here to look at your crystal." "It doesn't feel like mine anymore," Sarah said. "But yes, it's this way." As they walked down the short hall, the pull grew stronger. It was like walking down a very gentle hill, except the floor was flat. 2 members of the team stumbled slightly. Pens in Bose's pockets slid toward the gallery. They stepped into the oddities and unknowns room. The crystal waited bright and clear in its glass case, lines shifting in slow, perfect order. Bose stopped. Behind her visor, her eyes widened. "Is that all?" Captain Morales asked softly. "We flew out here for a pretty rock." Bose held up a sensor wand. The readouts jumped. Gravity at the floor right under the case was 1.08 grens instead of the normal 1.00. Time, measured by paired atomic clocks in her pack and on her wrist, showed a tiny delay, nanoseconds but consistent. "This is it," Bose said. "This is your anchor." "I told you," Leo's voice said from the small speaker pinned to her shoulder. He was patched in from Caltech. The field map matches perfectly. That device is shaping local space-time according to the anchor pattern. Bose circled the case slowly. The air felt like warm jelly. The closer she brought her hand to the glass, the more resistance she felt, as if she were pushing against something invisible. Field tension is high, she said, but stable. The pattern is beautiful. Plain language, Doctor, Walker said, listening in on the same line. It's holding a patch of space and time in a very strict shape, she said, choosing her words. Not just here. The shape is connected to a much bigger pattern my team is seeing in deep field data. It's like this crystal is a peg holding down a corner of a very large net. Can we turn it off? The general asked. Bose did not answer at once. Instead, she pulled a small device from her bag, a portable space-time simulation unit that Leo's group had rushed to finish overnight. She placed it on a table, linked it to her sensors, and turned it on. A small hologram sprang up over the device, a cube of faint lines showing a local piece of space. In the center, a bright point marked the crystal. Lines around it curved in neat loops. This is the local effect, she said. Now tying it into the larger model, she tapped a control. The hologram zoomed out. The bright point stayed, but now lines extended away from it in long, faint arcs. They curved toward other bright spots far, far away. Those are other anchors, Major Lee asked over the line. Those are other anomalies in deep field data that match the same pattern, Leo said. On his own screen at Caltech, the same cube turned and shifted. Some we've seen before and written off as strange. Some we only see now that we know what to look for. How many? Walker asked. Within 1,000 light years, Leo said. At least 20 strong ones. Maybe more, weaker, or hidden by dust. All linked by the same kind of controlled curvature. The hologram shifted again. Now it showed a patch of the Milky Way. Stars glittered, small and white. Between them a faint grid appeared, connecting some regions and leaving others untouched. Think of it like this, Bose said, pointing. Space is not perfectly even. Gravity makes dents. Nearby stars tug on each other. Black holes twist things. There are also random events, supernovae, flares, interactions we don't fully model. Over millions of years, that leads to chaos. Planets get flung out of systems or pulled in or heated too much. But here, Leo added, highlighting a flat-looking area, we see a region where orbits are too neat, star spins are too regular, supernova rates are lower than they should be. It's as if someone smoothed this whole patch of space, made it calmer. And this museum rock is part of that, the general asked. Yes, Leo said. The field it is making matches the pattern holding this plateau steady. We think this is what we called in theory a local space-time plateau, a large, calm area kept stable by anchor points like this one. Sarah stared at the hologram. It was hard to think that her small town, her small building, sat on a line that stretched across light years. Those other anchors, Major Lee said, do we see planets there? Signs of life? Bose flicked through overlays. Exoplanet maps appeared. Small dots near some stars were colored green, yellow, or red, based on guesses of habitability. In this plateau region, she said, we see a higher number of planets in stable, life-friendly zones, more than in similar regions elsewhere. Some of those planets show atmospheric signs that could match industry or advanced chemistry. So the anchor net made it easier for life to grow there, Walker said slowly. Stable sun, stable seasons, not too many big hits. Exactly, Leo said. If you keep a region's physics from going wild, you give civilizations more time to rise, less risk of random disasters. And if this anchor turns off, the general pushed. Bose zoomed in on the local section again. The bright point at Sedona pulsed. Lines shrank inward a bit. If we somehow shut this one down gently, she said, the rest of the net might hold. It would sag in this spot, but others could pick up some slack. Over millions of years, orbits of some systems might drift more, but no instant disasters. And if it fails violently, Leo said, if someone broke it without care, that's harder to model. The field here is carrying a lot of tension. If it released all at once, it could send out a wave of instability, small changes at first, but cascading. Sector-scale extinction event, Bose added quietly. Not everywhere, but some band of space, maybe dozens of light years across, could see more flares, more orbit shifts, more chaos. That might kill off civilizations that just barely made it through other challenges. Sarah's stomach turned. She imagined distant skies with 2 suns, strange star colors, cities under domes, whatever civilization meant out there. Whole histories, whole sets of stories, depending on this machine staying calm under a glass dome in her museum. Are we sure? Major Lee asked. This is huge. We don't want to overstate. We're as sure as we can be with models, Leo said, and those models fit the data too well to ignore. Meanwhile, Walker cut in. We have 33 unknown probes finishing a shell around our planet. Everyone looked up at the nearest sky view. The live map showed red dots sliding into place. The shell was not solid. The probes held positions at equal angles, leaving wide swaths of open space between them, but their fields overlapped. Reading their tuning, an orbital tech reported, they are matching the anchor's field to micro-precision. If you overlay them, the screen did, the lines from the probes wrapped around Earth in a way that meshed almost perfectly with the crystal's output. It was like a cage that had been made to fit, now being gently set over the planet. They're not pressing yet, Leo said. They're just watching, measuring. And if we try to move the anchor? Walker asked. Bose shook her head, then realized Walker could not see that over the line and spoke. We don't even know how it's touching the outside world, she said. It looks like a crystal, but its mass in the equations is bigger than the object. It might be anchored in some deeper layer of space-time, not just sitting on that stand. If we tried to drag it or box it in with heavy shielding, we might pull on the net. Sarah hugged herself. It's been here for decades, she said quietly. Why is it waking now? Everyone paused. Good question, Reese said. Possibilities, Major Lee asked. Leo sighed. We can guess. It might be on a timer. Maybe its makers check in every few hundred years and it's sending a report. Or something about our own tech poked it. Mass launches, big fusion fields, the sun shields. Or, he stopped. Or what? Walker pressed. Or something else in the net started to fail, Leo said. If another anchor far away got damaged, this one might be taking up more load, shifting pattern, pinging a central system for help. That could have drawn attention, so we might be fixing something they care about, the general said, and they show up to take charge. Leo did not argue. While the high-level talk went on, life on Earth did not stop. People went to work, kids went to school, streams filled with fast jokes about alien fans forming a VIP barrier around the planet. Some people panicked and stocked food. Some went outside at night to stare up, even though the probes were too far away to see with bare eyes. In Sedona, the museum stayed closed. Bo's team set up quiet instruments in each room. Small drones floated near the ceiling, mapping the field in 3 dimensions. Portable clocks ticked away nanoseconds, sending data to Leo. Sarah watched, feeling both in the way and too central. Do you need me to leave the room? She asked Bose once. Bose shook her head. You've lived with this thing longer than any of us. You might notice a change faster. Also, she added, softer, I think it knows you. Sarah blinked. It's a machine, she said. Yes, Bose said, but it is a very complex machine built to respond to its environment. You've been that environment for a long time. Sarah thought of all her mornings greeting it, all the jokes she had heard from tourists, all the days she had checked its glass and dusted its stand. She stepped closer. Hi, she said, feeling foolish. They're trying to help. Don't break of yourself. Please. The pattern inside did not change, but the hum shifted slightly. The clocks showed a tiny drop in time drift. Bose's eyebrows rose. Well, she said quietly to Leo. That's interesting. Coincidence? Leo asked. Could be, she said, or not. Outside the local bubble, pressure grew. News channels ran split screens. On one side, the crystal and Sedona. On the other, graphics of the probe shell. Talkheads shouted. Calm experts explained. Social feeds split into camps. Some people demanded that the anchor be shut down at once. We never agreed to be part of some alien network, a popular host said. If this thing is a leash on our solar system, cut it. We have a right to control our own gravity. Others argued just as fiercely that Earth had no right to risk lives beyond its sky. If this anchor is helping other civilizations live and grow, we don't get to pull the plug just because we're scared, a science teacher in Lagos said in a viral video. Imagine if some far-off planet had held our sun steady so we could exist. Would we want them to smash that device the moment they noticed us? Military forums buzzed. "This is the perfect weapon," some officers wrote. "A device that can tweak orbits, slow or speed up time locally. If we can control it, we can protect Earth from long-range threats forever, or turn it on enemies." Other analysts warned that trying to weaponize something tied into a huge net was like tapping a main power line with a fork. In the middle of this, governments argued. Some wanted the anchor put under strict global control, moved to a deep bunker, wrapped in layers of shields. Some demanded that Sedona hand it over to an international station. Others, more fearful, suggested sending it into the sun before any aliens could claim it. In a secure channel, Walker, Major Lee, Leo Bose, and a small group of leaders met. They had to propose a plan. "Our main options are clear," Major Lee said, summing up. 1. Maintain the anchor as is, no big changes, and try to open communication with the probes, accepting that we are part of this net. 2. Try to adjust it gently, maybe reduce its link strength to lower our profile. 3. Shut it down, hoping we can do it in a controlled way, and live with the consequences for the region of space it supports. And 4. The general cut in, seize it for defense purposes, and start learning how to use it as a shield or a weapon. Leo pressed his lips together. "That's covered under adjust," Major Lee said. "But we should be honest about the risks." "Let's model each path," Walker said. Leo nodded. On the shared screen, he brought up 4 simulations. The first showed the current net. Calm lines spread out from Sedona to nearby stars. Some exoplanets glowed faint green. "If we maintain and protect the anchor," he said, "the net stays stable. Civilizations in this region keep their calm conditions. The probes likely stay. They may send more. We become visible and interesting. Maybe they try to contact us more directly. Maybe they set rules." "Rules?" the general asked. "They may have a norm for how anchor sites behave," Leo said. "Maybe no big field changes, no weapons tests, no messing with the net without permission. If they see us poke the anchor too hard, they might respond." "What kind of response?" Walker asked. "We have no idea," Bose said. "Could be a warning ping. Could be a local field adjustment that locks the anchor beyond our touch. Could be removal." "Removal?" Sarah asked from the edge of the room where she listened in now. "Turn it off or take it," Bose said gently. "We don't know how much power they have." The second simulation showed the net with Sedona's node a bit dimmer. "Adjusting the anchor," Leo said, "is the most interesting scientifically. If we can learn even a little about its controls, if it has controls, we might shift which distant systems get more stability. We might help new regions grow life. We might tune it to support our own solar system more." "You want to retune reality," the general said flatly. "I want to understand the machine," Leo said, "and then maybe, yes, nudge things a little, carefully. But any visible change will catch the probe's attention. It might bring their makers faster." The third simulation showed the Sedona point go dark. The net sagged. Some distant lines grew wavy. 2 small green dots flickered red. "In a controlled shutdown," Bose said, "we would try to slowly ramp down the field. Let the net relax. Spread the load. Still, some edge systems might slip into more chaotic states. We might be killing off chances for life in those places, or shortening the time those civs have. And we would lose whatever benefits we get here," Leo added. "Our solar system sits on the edge of this plateau. Right now, we might be more stable than we should be. Past asteroid paths, solar flares, small things might have been smoothed. Turning this off could mean a slightly wilder future for us too." The last simulation showed dark, jagged waves. "Breaking it violently," Leo said, "is the worst case. If someone tries to use it as a weapon and overloads it, or if we damage it physically without understanding its deeper links, the net could send out a shock. Imagine a stone tossed into a calm pond, except the pond is the laws of motion over many light years. Some regions could get sudden changes in orbit energy. Some suns might have flares they would not have had. Some planets might shift enough to wipe out life. Our sector-scale extinction," Bose said again. "We might never see it with our eyes, but we'd know we had done it." Silence followed. Sarah felt slightly sick. "So the moral choice is to protect it and learn quietly," Major Lee said. "But the fear choice is to push it away, even at the cost to others, to keep ourselves safe. And the selfish power choice is to weaponize it," Walker added, "which will tempt many." "Do we have time to wait?" the general asked. Those probes are not statues. At any time, their owners might speak or act, as if the universe had heard. A new alert chimed. Reading field modulation from probes, came the orbital tech's voice. They are not transmitting in our usual bands, but they are changing their space-time fields in a regular pattern. Like what? Leo asked. Like tapping on the net, the tech said, sending pulses along the same lines the anchor uses. We think they're trying to talk to it, or through it. Can we hear them? Walker asked. Not directly, Bose said, but we can see the effect of their pulses on the crystal's pattern. In Sedona, the lines inside the crystal shifted. A new rhythm appeared. Short, short, long, short, long, long. The hum rose and fell in a repeating series. It's Morse code, a young scientist muttered without thinking. It's not Morse, Bose said, but it is a code. Look. She overlaid the inner pattern with the probe field map. Every time the outer shell pulsed in a certain way, the crystal's anchor pattern flashed a mirror image, then settled. It was like a call and response. They're pinging the anchor, Leo said, checking its status, maybe asking simple questions. Like what? Sarah asked softly. He thought for a moment. They might be asking, are you stable? How is your load? Any failures nearby? He said. Or who is touching you? Now that we've put instruments around it, we might have changed its feel. Can we answer? Walker asked. Bose looked at the crystal. Not in their language, she said, but we might be able to modulate the field slightly. Tap it in a way, by adjusting mass or electromagnetic fields near it and seeing if it copies our pattern into the net. We should not start talking in a tongue we don't understand, the general warned. We also should not sit here and let aliens ask who's holding our anchor without saying anything, another leader said. That makes us look sneaky. Sarah cleared her throat. You're all talking about it, she said, like it's theirs. What if it's not? What if whoever made it is gone, or changed, or doesn't care anymore? Leo blinked. That is also possible, he said. The probes might be old, reactivated, or part of a system that just keeps running even if the society that built it has moved on. Still, they're operating now with clear intent. Sarah looked at the crystal. Maybe we should start by saying something simple, she said. Like we're here. It feels wrong to use this thing for decades and then hide when the bill comes. Bose studied her. Miss Whitman, she said, what do you want to do? Not as a scientist, not as a soldier, as the person who lives next to this. Sarah swallowed. I want to not kill anyone, she said. Here or out there. I want this plateau to stay calm if it helps people, even if that means being seen. I don't like being watched, but I like the idea of pulling someone else's ground out from under them even less. So I don't want to shut it down just to stay small. She hesitated. But I also don't want to just hand it to people who will think of it only as a gun. Bose nodded slowly. That lines up with option 1 with care, Major Lee said. Maintain, learn, avoid wild changes, seek contact, share control widely so no single group can weaponize. Walker sighed. The politicians will scream, he said, but it's defensible, and it matches our better instincts. Can we at least move key study somewhere safer? The general asked. A base, a bunker. Bose pointed at the crystal. This is the safest place, she said. It's tied to these coordinates. This building has been part of its context for decades. Moving it might stress the net in ways we can't predict. Better to harden around it. Sedona becomes the most important gravity lab in human history, Leo said with a weak smile. Congratulations, Miss Whitman. Your museum just got funding forever. Sarah did not smile back. Let's start with that. We're here, Bose said. If we can agree. They did, after more talk. In a tense, careful move, Bose's team set up a set of small masses, dense tungsten spheres around the crystal case. They could move them in precise steps with magnetic slides. The idea was simple. By moving the masses, they could slightly change the total gravity around the anchor. That would change its field pattern. If the probes were sensitive, they might see this as a local tap. Leo and his coders worked out a very basic code, a sequence of mass moves that, when translated into field pulses, formed a clean pattern of prime numbers. Prime numbers, they hoped would say, this is an intelligent math user, without tying them to any sound or image. Ready, Bose said, her hand near the control. Go ahead, Walker said. Send the hello. The masses moved. To the eye, it was boring. Small metal balls sliding a few centimeters, silently. To the field instruments, it was a tiny storm. The crystal's pattern jumped, then settled. The local net lines shivered. Far above, the probe's fields flared in response. They heard it, the tech said. They definitely heard it. Probe shells shimmered on the map as data points shifted. For a long minute, nothing else happened. Then, the probes replied. Their field pulses came in a clean sequence. 2 pulses, gap. 3 pulses, gap. 5 pulses, gap. 7, 11, 13, primes. They answered with the same idea, Leo said. His voice shook a little. They're saying, yes, we see your math. On the ground, nothing blew up. The crystal hummed. The anchor's pattern grew a tiny sideband, a new part of its cycle that matched the probe pulse timing. It was as if the net had grown a new little conversation line on top of its main load-bearing work. That's good, Bose said. We've started a dialogue that doesn't shake the plateau. Now what? Major Lee asked. We can't send essays in primes. Step by step, Leo said. We can build a shared code, bigger numbers, then shapes, then maybe star maps. Show them we know where we are, that we are local minds, not just random noise. And at some point, Walker added, we ask about rules, about what they expect from an anchor site, and what they will do if we refuse, the general said. In Sedona, the pressure in the air eased slightly. The gravity bowl was still there, but its edge felt smoother. The time drift between Sarah's watch and the wall clock shrank by half. Did we just make it happier? She asked. Bose checked her instruments. The field is more balanced, she said. Less tension. Maybe it's sharing load with the probes now, or with other anchors. Either way, that is good for everyone. On the global stage, tension did not vanish, but it shifted. The knowledge that the probes would respond, not attack, took the sharpest fear away for some. For others, the fact that contact had begun only increased anxiety. Human factions hardened around ideas. The Shut It Down Now movement organized marches in big cities, holding signs that showed a broken crystal with the words "Cut the leash." They argued that even if distant aliens died, humans had to put Earth first. Opposite them, the Keep the Net groups gathered online and in flash mobs, with banners showing stylized webs of stars. We are not alone in the equation, their slogan went. Militaries, quieter but no less active, ran side studies. What if we have to fight through the net? Voice. Can we hide from anchors? Can we build a backup anchor of our own someday? In her small museum, Sarah's job changed. She no longer only dusted and guided tours. Now she signed papers with long titles about host facility manager for local anchor site. Voice. She had a security badge that let her into sealed data rooms. Sensors and cables filled her once quiet office. But when the teams packed up each night and left a skeleton crew, she still did the same small thing. She walked into the gallery, stood before the glass case, and said goodnight. The crystal still hummed. In the nights that followed, strange patterns appeared in deep sky data. Stars at the edge of the plateau flickered in rhythms that matched some of the probe anchor pulses. Long-range telescopes caught tiny changes in timing that did not match natural flares. It was as if other anchors, far away, had briefly brightened in response to the Sedona contact. You've started a wave, Leo said on a call. A quiet one. Other anchor sites know something has changed here. Do you think they have curators too? Sarah asked, half serious. Maybe, he said. Maybe there is some other person, or not person, sitting in a building looking at a device like yours and asking the same questions. She imagined that for a moment. A room under a red dwarf sun, or under a dense crowded starfield near the galactic center. Someone looking at their anchor, feeling the tug of a net they did not make, and now seeing new patterns from the direction of a small yellow star and a blue planet. It made her feel less alone. It also made the weight of her choices heavier, because the more they learned, the clearer the next step became. At some point, humans would have to decide not just how to talk, but what they wanted their place in this net to be. Would they be a quiet node, doing their part to keep things stable, a loud modifier, trying to shift the plateau for their own goals, or a broken link, pulling away and letting the plate warp? The simulations of anchor adjustment grew more detailed. Leo's group found that by slightly shifting the mass layout around the crystal, they could nudge its focus. In model form, that meant slightly more stability towards certain nearby star clusters, slightly less toward others. Bose showed Sarah one of those runs. "This is us turning the anchor 3 microradians," she said, using a pencil to point at the display. "Almost nothing by human eye, but these lines here," she traced paths to a group of faint dots, "get a tiny boost. Over millions of years, that could mean a few more stable life worlds in that direction." "And these?" Sarah asked, pointing to another cluster. "They get a tiny bit less," Bose said. "Still stable, but not as perfect. The net resources are not infinite. Shifting help from one region to another has a cost." Sarah stared. "You're asking me to choose which stars get help," she said. "Not just you," Bose said gently. "A whole team, a whole species, really. This is not a choice for any single person, but you are at the center of the action." Sarah felt that weight like a hand on her back. "I don't even know those stars' names," she said. "I don't know if there are people there, or if they're just empty rocks." "Nobody does," Bose said. "We only have hints, but the network's makers did this without asking us. They picked which regions got more calm. Now we, accidentally, are holding part of their lever. Back in orbit, the probes held their silent watch. No weapons came out, no beams fired. Only the soft rise and fall of their fields, now in rhythm with a new little pattern that included human-made pulses. To many it looked like peace, to others, like a fence with polite guards. Through it all the Earth turned. Storms still formed and faded. Kids still ran in parks. Machines still hummed in factories and labs. From space the planet looked the same, but just above a patch of desert near Sedona, space-time itself had thickened and smoothed, held by a clear crystal that had sat in a glass case for 40 years, waiting. The weight of star systems, of far-off cities and suns, now pressed gently through that case onto the shoulders of a few humans who had to think both small and large at the same time. They had started to talk. Soon, they would have to choose. The first clear message came 10 days after the prime number hello. Not words, not pictures, just numbers and pulses along the net. Leo, Bose, and a half-dozen other physicists sat in a dim lab at Caltech, eyes red from long hours. The big screen showed lines of data in different colors, human-made pulses in blue, probe pulses in red, changes in the crystal's field in green. "They're repeating a pattern," said Jin, a young coder. "Look, this block here, then this one, then back. It's not random." Leo nodded. "It's like they built a little code book on top of primes," he said. "We send 2, 3, 5. They send 2, 3, 5, then add a new bit. We reply with that bit. They add more, step by step. They're teaching us their way of counting and grouping." It felt like a slow game between minds built in very different places. At first, they built a shared math base, prime numbers, squares, simple ratios, then star maps. The probes sent pulses that, when turned into coordinates, matched the positions of the other known anchor sites in the plateau. Leo's team replied with pulses that marked the sun and Earth. "They know where we are now, exactly," Bose said. "They already did," Leo answered. "The anchor position was never a secret to them, but now they know we know where we are. After math and maps came something more. The probe sent a long, steady field pattern that, when graphed, looked like a ladder. Steps rose, then fell. It repeated. At first I thought it was broken data," Jin said, "but when we overlay it with the timing of known supernovae in the plateau region," he hit a key. The graph lined up with a list of known star explosions. "Some of them happen right on these steps," he said. "Others don't. The pattern looks like a control schedule." "Control," Bose said softly. "As in, they encourage or prevent certain big events." Leo swallowed. "So that's what the anchors do besides hold orbits," he said. "They also shape timing of extreme events. They let some supernovae happen to spread heavy elements. They slow others to avoid wiping out too many worlds at once." On another layer, Jin showed how the ladder's base had tiny wiggles. "Those wiggles match our anchor's load changes," he said. "And look here, new wiggles since we started talking. So they've added us to their control plan," Bose said. "We're in their schedule now." When they replied, they sent a pattern that meant, as best as humans could guess with math, "We understand you shape events. We affect your anchor. We are thinking minds here." The reply from the probes came faster than before. A new pattern came over the net, sharp pulses, forming 2 distinct groups. A long pause, then the same two groups but with one muted. What are they saying? Walker asked later, in a global call where the top teams reported. We think it's about options, Leo said. They're showing us two stable modes for this anchor, strong link or weak link. In strong mode, the anchor stays as it is now or even grows. In weak mode, it still works, but its tie to the rest of the net is softer. And the muted one? Major Lee asked. Bose tapped the screen. We think that's shutdown mode, she said. They're telling us that is possible too. They're not forcing us to keep it on, but every simulation we run of that mode shows big waves in the plateau. Do they understand that turning it off here might kill people there? Sarah asked from the Sedona room, watching via a small screen. They built this system, Leo said. They know the costs. The way they present the options suggests they expect strong or weak, not off. Off is shown like a last resort. Walker leaned back in his chair and rubbed his forehead. So, he said, it's time. We cannot wait much longer. The field is changing. The net is changing. We have to pick a path and tell them. In the days leading up to that choice, the world argued harder than ever. Big public halls hosted debates, streamed to billions. Sarah watched some at night, sitting on a cot in a spare room of her own museum, too tired to go home. On one stage, a general with silver hair and sharp eyes spoke calmly. We face powers that shape stars, he said. We cannot hope to match them soon, but we can avoid being fully under their control. Weak mode anchor, or full shutdown, lets us set space between us and them. We must think of our children's children. Do we want them to live always under a net made by strangers? A scientist on the same stage shook her head. And what about the children of other suns? She replied. What about minds out there that may have lived under this net for 1,000,000 years? Do we cut their safety system because we feel watched? That is not strength. That is fear that harms others. Online, people took sides. Cut the anchor trends pushed for a planned shutdown in 10 years. To give time for distant systems to adjust. Guard the plateau called for full preservation and friendly contact with the net makers. Shorter tags went viral too. Our gravity, shared sky, not your leash, we hold too. In Sedona, the data walls filled with more and more lines. The probe's pulses were steady now. They seemed patient. No sign of weapons. No physical objects came down. Only math and field shapes flowed along the net. I keep waiting for a big ship, Morales said once, standing near a window and staring up, their armor helmet off. Something you can point a camera at. But maybe this is how they talk. All math, no metal. Maybe they don't need ships, Bose said. When you can touch stars from hundreds of light years away, by shaping space-time, physical travel might be almost quaint. Sarah thought of that when she walked the empty halls at night. These aliens, if that was still the right word, had worked at huge scales so long that a little planet like Earth was just a point in a map to them. Yet now, through tiny changes in a crystal in her care, Earth could speak back. She ran her fingers along the cool outer glass of the case. You are heavy, she told the anchor softly. But you're also a bridge. I don't know if I like your builders, but I can't pretend they don't exist. The next day, she sat in on the final closed council. Her seat was at the end of a long table, far from the central screens. Walker, Major Lee, Leo, Bose, and others formed the main circle. A few political leaders joined by secure video. We've had public hearings, Major Lee began. We've had expert panels. We've learned what we can from the probes and the net. It comes down to 3 real options, not 4. No one serious now supports breaking the anchor outright. That's off the table. The general nodded grudgingly. Agreed, he said. Even the most hawkish teams see that as suicide by cosmic karma. A small laugh went around the table, tense but real. So, Major Lee went on, we choose between strong mode, stay as we are, maybe even strengthen our link. Weak mode, soften the anchor's tie to the net, or scheduled shutdown over time, with full warning to the probes and a plan to minimize harm. Leo brought up a diagram. Here is strong mode, he said. We commit to being a full partner node. We keep the anchor's load at least at its current level, maybe increase it to help nearby regions that look close to instability. In return, we ask the net makers for some protection agreements. Maybe we can negotiate rules. No direct interference in our solar system without consent. No weapon use through the anchor. And you think Star Shapers will obey our little treaties? A leader asked. I think they built a system based on long-term stability. Leo said. That suggests they value rules. Even if their idea of fair is very different from ours, they seem to avoid random harm. They've kept this plateau calm for ages. That's a good sign. Strong mode also paints a big target on us, the general said. We become an important node. If anyone ever wants to hurt the net, they might come for us. Anyone like who? Bose asked. We've seen no sign of enemy powers of the same scale, only this net system. Any war at that level is beyond our reach anyway. The second diagram lit. In weak mode, Leo said, we adjust the anchor to share less load with the net. It's still part of it, but more loosely. The plateau warps a little. Some distant systems may feel more chaos, but we shrink our profile. Earth is less crucial. The probes still watch, but maybe with less focus. We can study the tech without as much moral weight. Selfish compromise, murmured a leader. Help others less so, we feel less watched. Practical compromise, another replied. Keep some rights to our own physics. Remember, Bose said, our own system has almost surely benefited from this net already. Past asteroid misses, slightly milder flares. We are not clean outsiders here. We've been part of this system all along, we just didn't know it. The third plan showed a long slope. Scheduled shutdown, Leo said. We work with the probes to reduce the anchor load over, say, 1,000 years. Very slow. We warn them. They adjust other anchors. The plateau reshapes slowly. Distant civs might not even feel much. At the end, Earth's anchor goes dark. We leave the net mostly behind. That asks us to predict human choices for 1,000 years, Walker said. No plan like that survives. New people will come. New needs. They might undo it, or rush it, or change the terms. That path kicks the problem down the road and lets those other worlds prepare, someone argued. Better than slamming the door in their faces tomorrow. Walker's eyes went to Sarah. Miss Whitman, he said, you've heard all this a dozen times, but we want your words on record here. If it were only up to you, what would you choose? Silence filled the room. She felt all the eyes on her. She took a breath and thought of her mother, dusting the crystal the way she did, of kids pressing their faces to the glass, of the years she had walked these halls, thinking her job was small and local. I think, she said slowly, we don't get to pretend this net doesn't exist. We've lived in its calm for who knows how long. We owe something to whatever and whoever has shared that calm with us. She looked at the strong mode diagram. But I also don't want to throw Earth wide open to any demand from beings we barely understand. I don't trust us yet, not to use a strong link to ask for too much, or to try to push the net for our own gain. Her eyes moved to the weak mode plan. Weak mode feels like hiding, she said, but it might give us space to grow up a bit, to learn this tech more, to learn who we are in a bigger picture, before we take on more weight. I don't want to schedule a shutdown for people 1,000 years from now. That feels like trying to write history for them. She swallowed. So if I had to choose today, I'd pick weak mode. Stay in the net, but with a softer tie. Keep helping, but not as much as we could. Give ourselves time to understand, and to prove to ourselves and maybe to these net makers that we can be steady partners, not just scared children or greedy neighbors. Leo watched her, thoughtful. Bose nodded slowly. That matches my instinct, she said. Science loves strong mode. We always want more data, but ethics says, move slowly when many lives are at stake. Walker looked around the table. Others? He asked. Voices came in, some agreeing, some cautioning. The general wanted more conditions, weak mode, but with a stated right to shift if threatened. A politician from a coastal region said, strong mode, with tight global control. If we're going to be in, be in. A teacher, invited as a citizen voice, said, weak mode, and build a culture that remembers these choices, so our great-grandchildren don't forget what this net means. In the end, after hours of talk in open and closed sessions, a rough agreement formed. Humans would choose weak link. Not a full surrender to the net. Not a cut. A step sideways. The message itself was simple. Bose's team built a pulse pattern based on the net's option signal. They marked the weak mode block with a clear highlight. More pulses, more emphasis. Then they added a long, careful set of math that meant, in their shared code, we are young, many minds here. We want to help keep the plateau calm, but we need time. Send it, Walker said. The tungsten masses moved in the Sedona gallery. The crystal's field resonated. The probes felt the change almost at once. Far above, their shells lit the map with new colors. As their internal fields shifted, For a moment, the net lines around Earth brightened, then softened. "They're answering," Jin said, voice high. The reply came as a broad, slow pulse from all 33 probes at once, then a second, narrower pulse from only 2 of them, the ones closest in angle to Sedona. Leo watched the graph build. "That's acceptance," he said, letting out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. "They've tuned to weak mode." "How can you tell?" the general asked. "The net's overall pattern changed," Leo said, pointing. "See, here." The load on Sedona dropped by 23%. Some of that load shifted to other anchors. The plateau stayed mostly flat, but slightly different. "That matches my weak mode model nearly exactly." "And the 2 close probes?" Major Lee asked. "Watch," Bo said. On the local map, those 2 probes drifted inward just a little, tightening their orbits. Their fields linked more directly to the Sedona anchor. "They're assigning guardians," Leo said. 2 closer watchers for the weak link, maybe to help it if it slips, or to keep it from misbehaving, the general said. "Maybe both," Bose replied. At the same time, instruments in Sedona recorded a change. The gravity bowl eased. The pull at the floor dropped to 103 gram. The time drift between Sarah's watch and the wall clock shrank to almost nothing. The air's thickness faded, though a faint pressure stayed. Sarah walked to the case. For the first time since it woke, the humming in her bones softened. It was still there, but quieter. "Feels lighter," she said. "Field tension is down," Bose agreed, checking her gear. "The anchor is carrying less of the net. We're still part of the plateau, but we're no longer a major peg." Leo's screen showed the far stars. 2 faint green dots on the plateau edge dimmed slightly, then held steady. "We've robbed no worlds today," he said softly. "At least not at a level we can see in our models." "Good." The probes sent 1 more pulse. Short, short, long. The same pattern played back through the crystal, but softer. "That's acknowledgement," Jin said. "Maybe heard or logged. And there's a new baseline in their field," Bose said. "A low-level channel, open line. So we've chosen," Walker said, "and they've accepted. For now, for now." Those 2 words hung in everyone's mind, because nothing in the universe stayed still forever, not even a net made to hold chaos at bay. The weeks that followed felt strangely calm. The probes kept their shell, but made no aggressive move. Their fields adjusted now and then, small maintenance pulses that matched distant anchor shifts. Weather on Earth stayed normal for the season. No new big flares from the sun. No surprise asteroids. Public tensions cooled a bit. People got used to the idea that 33 alien probes sat out there, quiet as buoys. The shut-it-down-now crowd shrank but did not vanish. "No anchor lasts forever," their flyers said. "We should plan for independence." The Keep the Net groups grew into something deeper. They started holding star nights, where people lay on rooftops and in fields, looking up, talking about shared reality. Stories spread about possible far-off minds under the same plateau sky. Books, plays, little comics. Some artists painted the net as glowing lines across the Milky Way, with tiny crystal shapes at each crossing. In most of these paintings, the anchor at Earth had a small human hand resting on it. In Sedona, the museum reopened in a careful way. The oddities and unknowns room became half lab, half exhibit. Clear barriers kept visitors a few meters from the case. Sensors hummed softly. A simple, honest sign greeted people at the door. Causality, anchor node, 23A. This device has helped keep parts of our region of the galaxy stable for a very long time. It is part of a larger network built by unknown minds. Earth has chosen to remain linked to this network at a reduced level while we learn more. Please be respectful. Our actions here may matter very far away. School groups came with wide eyes. "Is it dangerous?" a boy asked Sarah once. "It can be if we're careless," she said. "But so can a dam or a power plant. Things that hold big flows always carry risk. Why don't we just smash it?" a girl asked, stubborn. "Because other people might fall because of us," Sarah answered. "Not people we can see, but they're still real." On some days, she caught adults reading that sign twice, slower the second time. Dr. Bose's team thinned out over months. Some went back to their universities, working with new grant money on anchor studies and plateau modeling. Some stayed, rotating in and out, updating instruments, watching for changes. Leo came to Sedona in person at last. He stood in front of the crystal, hands in his jacket pockets, feeling the faint drag on his body. I dreamed about this thing, he said to Sarah. 10 years of theory. Now I'm not sure if meeting it makes me feel smart or very, very small. Both, she said. I didn't dream of it at all, and I feel the same. They walked outside into the sun. The red rock cliffs glowed. A hawk wheeled overhead. Far up in the sky, a tiny spark moved slowly. That was a station, not a probe. The probes were too far to see. Do you ever regret weak mode? Leo asked after a while. She thought. Sometimes, she said. Some nights when I think of all the worlds we could help more if we took on more load. Then I think of all the ways we could mess that up. And I think starting small was right for now. He nodded. Me too, he said. But I also think we won't stay weak forever. Our kids or their kids might choose to tune stronger, or to build an anchor of our own design one day. You want to be like them? She asked. Shaping stars. I want us to be careful if we ever get close to that level, he said. The net makers didn't pick the easy path. Holding chaos back at this scale for this long takes patience. It's a kind of kindness, in a hard, cold way. She looked up at the blank blue. Do you think they're good? She asked. He did not answer at once. I think they decided long ago that more chances for life are worth a lot of effort, he said. That counts for something, but good at that scale might not look like our good. They might accept trade-offs we would find painful. We have to grow our own ethics, not just copy theirs. She thought of her mother again. When Sarah was little, she had asked, why do we keep all this old stuff? People throw things away. Maybe they wanted it gone. Her mother had said, we can't know all their reasons, but we know these things still have weight. They still touch lives now, so we keep them safe, not just for the people who made them, but for the people who will see them. Now the crystal was the biggest old thing she could imagine. Not old in years, but old in influence. It had been holding lives she would never meet. Guarding it felt like guarding both past and future. Months passed. The world shifted, but not as fast as the news had promised. That was the funny thing about huge changes. Daily life still felt like breakfast, work, dishes, walks. But in quiet corners, plans grew. An Anchor Ethics Council formed, made of scientists, teachers, faith leaders, and some ordinary people. Their job was not to control the anchor, but to keep asking, who is hurt by our choices? Who is helped? Are we being fair? Navies and Space Forces rewrote some rules. No one was allowed to test heavy gravity weapons or big field engines near Sedona. Launch windows avoided flying huge masses right overhead. Do not kick the net became a half-joke, half-rule in some training manuals. In childhood games, some kids played anchor keepers, running around with clear plastic boxes, pretending to move fields with their hands. In their stories, the keepers were always trying to calm fights between planets. The probes kept their places. Once in a while, a new pulse would come, marking some adjustment in the wider plateau. Earth's anchor would tremble slightly, then settle. Bo's shrunken team would log it, compare it with Farstar data, and add one more line to the growing book of how the net moves. No big ships came, at least none that humans could see. Sarah sometimes found herself sitting in the gallery late, lights low, just listening. The hum in her bones had become familiar, almost like the sound of the vending machine used to be. A background thing, a heartbeat of local reality. She placed her hand lightly on the outer glass. You're part of us now, she said, and we're part of you. Not as much as we could be, more than we were. The inner lines in the crystal moved with slow grace. Once, just once. She thought she saw something like a pattern in them that looked almost like writing. But when she blinked, it was gone, back to pure math. Bose told her later that the probes had sent a long, special pulse at the same time. Maybe they were tagging our node, Bose said, naming it in their records. Do we get to choose our own name? Sarah asked. Yes, Bose said. We sent back a pulse pattern that meant Earth in our code. They logged it. So, somewhere in a very alien archive, a quiet entry now existed. Anchor node 23A, Earth. Status, weak-linked stable. Local minds aware. It did not solve war or greed or pain on the planet. It did not erase old wrongs or prevent new ones. It did not make humans wise overnight, but it did something gentle and deep. It placed Earth inside a shared story. No longer just a lonely blue dot in a cold void. Not just the place that fixed its climate, or the world that invented fusion, Now also the world that found an anchor chose not to break it and began to learn how to live inside a bigger calm. In that story, Sarah was small, a person who dusted a case, kept notes, answered school kids, signed some forms. Yet when she walked through the museum on a quiet evening, turning out lights, she knew that her small choices had mattered. She passed the old fossils, the riverbed maps, the tools from long-gone settlers. She paused in front of each, checking locks, checking lights. Guardianship, her mother had called it. Not dramatic, just steady. At the last, she stopped before the crystal. Outside, the stars shone over Sedona. Beyond them, the plateau held. Farther still, chaos waited at the edges, as it always had. She took a breath, feeling the weight and the ease of it. "Good night," she said. The clock on the wall ticked in smooth, even seconds. The crystal hummed, and very gently, across light years, the shape of reality around many suns shifted a little, held steady by machines and minds that, for the first time, knew of each other and chose to share that work. The end, for now. The first year with weak mode felt, on the surface, almost normal. Summer heat rolled over Sedona. Tourists came back, taking photos of red rocks and buying silly hats. The museum gift shop sold more crystal keychains than ever, even though none looked anything like the real anchor. News about the probes and the net still appeared, but not every day. People got used to the idea. There are star-shaping machines out there, and a piece of their system sits in a small town. Life had to go on. Sarah's days shifted into a new rhythm. She still opened the doors each morning, checked the air filters, wiped down glass. But now, before anything else, she went to the oddities and unknowns room and logged the anchor status. A small panel by the door showed a simple line: Anchor 23A, stable SRI weak link, net load 0.77 standard. If that number stayed between 0.7 and 0.8, everything was calm. If it rose or fell too far, alarms would ping Dr. Bose's team and Leo's group at Caltech. Most mornings the number barely changed. She would note it in a log, glance at the crystal, say, "Morning," and move on. Once a week, Bose or another scientist visited in person, checking deeper readings, swapping out sensors, downloading raw data. Sometimes, Leo called in from a new lab that had grown up around his work. Anything new, he would ask. Same hum, same shine, Sarah would answer. You? Always, he would say, but at the pace of years. That was the strange thing about a machine tied into millions of years of stellar change. Its drama moved slowly. Still, small surprises came. 3 months after weak mode, the probes did something new. On a clear night, just after midnight Sedona time, all 33 shifted their fields in a smooth, rising pulse. Instruments on Earth reported a tiny change in gravity everywhere at once, less than a billionth of a G, but real. "What's that?" Jin said, watching the feed. On the far telescopes, a star in the plateau region brightened a little, then faded, then settled at a new level. "It's like they massaged it," Bose said later. "A slight change in its outer layers, maybe to keep it from flaring too hard. And they did it with us fully tied into their schedule," Leo said. "We saw the prep pulses. We saw the main push. For that event, we were part of their tool set. Some people cheered at that. We helped," Nemkar, keep the net post, said. "Our anchor carried a bit of that work. Others shivered. We were used," the Independence Now circles growled. "They did not ask our consent for that star. They just did it." Sarah watched the graphs fill with lines and felt both things. Proud, in a quiet way, that Earth's little corner had helped hold back a wild twist around a sun far away. Uneasy, knowing that decision had not been made in any human hall. That tension became normal too. Humans had to live with being small partners in a much larger system, with sharing control over something as basic as how steady is the sky. The Anchor Ethics Council met often. They sat in circles in different cities and in virtual rooms, asking slow questions. Should we ever ask the netmakers to help us directly? For example, to push a dangerous comet a tiny bit so it misses Earth, one member asked. If we never ask, we may be refusing help out of pride. Another said, if we ask too often, we become dependent. Who would get to decide what counts as dangerous enough? A teacher asked. Governments? A vote? A few experts? They wrote guidelines, not laws. Any request to alter local solar spacetime through the net must be debated in open forum, with full model of effects on the plateau, one point said. Requests must be rare, and only for global survival. They could not force the future to obey, but they could at least leave a record of how early generations had thought. In Sedona, kids grew up with the anchor as just another part of the town. They did school projects on our place in the plateau. They drew pictures of distant worlds linked by glowing lines. Some wrote stories where children on Earth and children on other planets sent each other messages through the net, like bottles in a river. One afternoon, a group of 12-year-olds toured the museum with their teacher. Sarah led them past old strata maps and fossil cases, then stopped in front of the anchor room sign. "You live near this," she said. "You probably know more about it than most people in the world did, 10 years ago. Any questions?" A boy with messy hair raised his hand. "Why don't the net makers ever talk to us with like voices?" he asked. "Or pictures? We sent them images of our solar system. They never sent back a picture of theirs. Maybe to them, field shapes are pictures," Sarah said. "To them, that ladder pattern of events we saw was as clear as a diagram on a wall is to us." A girl with bright braids spoke next. "What if they're not a they?" she asked. "What if it's just a bunch of machines running on their own now? No people, like we left old probes floating." Sarah had wondered that many times. "They might be," she said. "Or the people who built them might have changed so much that we wouldn't know how to talk faces to faces even if we tried. But in a way, it doesn't matter. Whoever runs the net, the choices it makes still touch real lives." Another hand went up. "Do you ever get scared?" a quiet voice asked. "Like, what if they change their minds one day?" She did not lie. "Yes," she said. "Sometimes I do. But then I think about something. They've had this net going for a long time, much longer than humans have had cities. If they wanted to crush us, they could have before we ever knew they existed. Instead, they made a calm place and tried to keep it that way. That doesn't mean they'll never make choices we hate, but it does mean they seem to care about stability more than chaos." The girl nodded slowly. Later, one of the boys hung back as the class drifted away. "My dad says we should smash it," he said in a rush. "He says it's a chain. He says we're cowards not to." Sarah looked at him. "What do you think?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. "It feels wrong to hurt people we can't see, but it also feels weird to have this." He waved at the case. "Like the ground I stand on isn't just ours anymore. It never was just ours," she said softly. "We shared it with all the animals, the plants, the air, the rivers, the people who came before. This is just one more kind of shared." He frowned, thinking. "Tell your dad he's not the first person to feel that mix," she added, "and that it's okay to keep talking about it, but also tell him nobody smashes anything near this case while I'm still here." The boy smiled a little at that, then ran to catch up with his class. Not everyone who hated the anchor stayed with words, though. One cold night in late autumn, sensors in the museum beeped sharp warnings. Morales was on site, working a quiet overnight shift, when the alerts flashed red. "Field spike," came a calm computer voice. "Unusual mass motion approaching from northwest at ground level. Velocity high." He looked at the small external cameras. Headlights, a heavy truck, engine whining, speeding off the main road toward the museum side fence. "Ah, no," he muttered. He hit the general alarm. In the gallery, the crystal's hum climbed in pitch. The net lines on Bose's remote feed twitched. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, jumping up from where she had been reading in the back room. "Truck," Morales said shortly. "Looks like someone wants to make a statement." The driver did. He had welded a crude metal point onto the front of the truck and loaded the back with old machine parts as extra mass. His plan, written in angry posts online, was simple: slam the vehicle into the anchor room, knock it over, break the leash. He did not know about the invisible bowl of gravity waiting. As the truck smashed through the side gate and roared toward the museum wall, the anchor's field grabbed that moving mass like a hand. The front wheels dipped, as if hitting a deep pothole. The truck's nose slammed down into bare dirt, 2 meters short of the building. Metal screamed. The entire vehicle folded in on itself, crushed by forces its driver could not see. Airbag smoke puffed from the broken cab. The driver lived, barely stunned, both legs broken, ribs cracked. Morales and 2 local officers pulled him out while sirens wailed. Above, the probes flared. For a brief, terrifying minute, their fields tightened like fists. Every clock on Earth stuttered. The anchor's inner pattern whirled in a fast, tight spiral. Local gravity in the room spiked to 1.3 G. Sarah dropped to one knee, breath driven out of her. "Easy," Bose said into her mic, voice strained as she watched from afar. "Easy. We're not doing this on purpose." Leo's team had models ready for sudden local mass shock. Bose. They pushed out calming pulses through the tungsten mass system, reversing the spike as best they could. "We have it," Jin said. Yes. Drop coming down." Slowly the bowl smoothed, gravity eased, the probe's field softened. In the net, the wave from the spike had already sped outward at light speed, a tiny bump in the plateau that would, in a few years and decades, reach other anchors. But it was small, damped by the system's own self-control. Moments later, a sharp, clear pulse came from the two Guardian probes. 3 short bursts, then a pause, then 3 more, repeated. "What does that mean?" Walker demanded. Bose ran the pattern through their shared code. "It's a warning," she said. "Their version of 'don't do that again.'" "Are they threatening?" the general asked. Bose listened to the pulse's shape. "It doesn't feel like that," she said slowly. "More like a strong tap on the table. We felt that. Control your mass." Sarah sat on the floor, back against the gallery wall, shaking. The driver, strapped to a stretcher, shouted curses as paramedics carried him past. "You're all slaves," he yelled. "Slaves to alien gravity." She closed her eyes. "You okay?" Morales asked, kneeling beside her. "Fine," she lied. Later, in the quiet of a small office, Agent Ruiz spoke to her gently. "You know this won't be the last attempt," Ruiz said. "We can't keep every angry person away, forever." "I know," Sarah said. I hate that they nearly made that choice for us. For the plateau, for those other worlds." She thought of the driver's plan and shivered. He had not seen the star maps. He had not stared at the long, slow ladder of controlled supernovae. To him, the anchor was only a symbol of something he feared. "We'll improve the fence," Morales said. "And the field response. That spike was too big. We can design dampers, and we'll need better teaching," Bose added. "More clear talk about what this is, what it does. Anger feeds easiest on what it doesn't understand." Sarah nodded. Later, she stood alone in the gallery again. The anchor hummed at its usual low level, as if nothing had happened, but she knew its load map now had a little scratch, a tiny scar from the spike. "Sorry," she said to it quietly. "We'll do better at guarding you, and guarding everyone you touch." The days after that were hard. News feeds replayed the crushed truck and the gravity spike screens. Some cheered the driver as a rebel, others cursed him as a near murderer of unseen billions. Arguments grew sharper for a while, but something else also grew. More people, seeing how close humans had come to a real break, realized just how fine the line was. Some who had shouted for smashing now stepped back, shaken. "I didn't think that it could react like that," one caller said on a talk show. "I thought it was just a rock, not something that could grab a truck out of the air." At the Anchor Ethics Council, a quiet sense of duty deepened. "We are not just making choices for ourselves," an older woman in a worn sweater said at one meeting. "We are also defending those choices from our own worst moments. Guardianship is not only about saying yes and no, it is also about keeping hot hands away from big levers when they're angry." Time, stubborn and steady, moved on. Years passed. Children born after the probes arrived grew old enough to have serious questions and strong opinions. The word plateau became part of normal speech in some places. "We live on the plateau, not the wild edge," people would say when talking about old disasters averted. New science bloomed. With better data from the anchor and the net, astroengineers could model long-term planet paths with more precision than ever. They found signs that yes, Earth had likely dodged at least 2 serious asteroid hits in the last billion years with help from careful net shifts. "They didn't fix everything for us," Leo said in a lecture. "We still had ice ages, volcanic winters, random bad luck, but without the net, some of those hits might have been worse, or more frequent. That space we had to stumble our way into cities and math, we owe some of that calm to this system. New fields formed in schools, plateau studies, anchor diplomacy, shared cosmology. In far observatories, hints of other civilizations on the plateau grew stronger. Regular patterns of light, odd chemical mixes in exoplanet air, warm night sides on some tidally locked worlds. We are not the only ones looking at their anchors, Bose said in a late-night call to Sarah. Some other node keepers may now know about us too. Even if we never trade a single word, we share this work. On Earth, not all problems eased. Wars still flared, though perhaps fewer than in old centuries. Climate shocks still came, though gentler. Inequality, fear and cruelty did not vanish under a calm sky. But the knowledge of the net changed some stories. In some corners, faith leaders spoke of the plateau as a kind of gift or test. Will we share the calm we've been given, or hoard it? In other corners, hard realists framed it as simple fact. Our physics is entangled with others. Self-interest now had to count beings beyond our maps. Through all this, the crystal stayed. Its clear sides never fogged. Its inner lines never slowed to a full stop again. It carried its part of the net like a quiet muscle under the skin of the world. Sarah grew older. Lines deepened around her eyes. A younger assistant took over some daily tasks at the museum. She still checked the anchor each morning, but now a second pair of eyes always learned the routine too. "This place will outlive me," she told her assistant, a careful woman named Min. "The anchor will too. Our job is to make sure the care for it doesn't depend on one person alone." Min nodded. "I know," she said. "My nieces already talk about being anchor watchers when they grow up." On a cool evening many years after the first hum, Sarah stood alone by the case again. Outside, the desert was quiet. The stars seemed close. Anchor 23A, stable, weak link, net load 0.76 standard, the panel read. Safe. She rested both hands on the outer glass. "Do you ever get tired?" she asked it, half smiling. Of course it did not answer. It did what it had been built to do. Hold patterns, share load, speak in pulses. Still, in the slow changes of its glow, she felt something like patience. Maybe she was only seeing her own reflected back. It did not matter. "We're still here," she said softly. "We haven't broken you. We still argue, but we try." Far above, the two Guardian probes adjusted their positions by a few meters, nothing visible to the eye. Far beyond them, another anchor half a galaxy away shifted its field to catch a small new wave from some local event. The plateau flexed and held. Somewhere under a different sun, someone else might have been standing in a room, very much like this, before a device as strange and clear, saying words of their own. The net did not care about language, it cared about balance. On a planet that had once thought itself alone, a quiet agreement now held. When given the chance to pull away and let distant worlds fall, humans had chosen, at least for now, to stay linked, even if more softly. That choice did not show up in the color of the sky or the taste of the air. It showed up in numbers, in the fact that certain stars shone, where, without the net, they might have flared or dimmed. Sarah turned off the gallery lights. The anchor glowed faintly in emergency mode, just enough for sensors to track it. In that dimness, its inner lines looked like tiny constellations. She stepped out into the hall, closed the door, and locked it. The vending machine in the lobby had been replaced years ago, but it still clicked softly as it cooled. The wall clock ticked in true, even seconds. Outside, traffic on the road was light, just a few quiet cars. She thought ahead, beyond her own life. There would be new councils, new ethics, new mistakes, new fixes. Maybe in some future century, humans would vote to shift from weak to strong mode. Maybe they would one day build their own small anchors around faraway moons. Maybe the net makers would finally send some kind of clearer hello. Or maybe, at this scale, math and mass were all the hello they ever needed. Whatever came, the anchor in Sedona would be part of it. For now, the long, quiet conversation continued. Pulses in gravity, tiny changes in time, the soft breathing of a galaxy region kept a bit smoother than it might have been. She stepped outside into the desert night. Stars crowded the sky, bright and close. Some of those stars shone a little steadier, because a clear, sharp-edged crystal in a small museum had not been smashed in anger or fear. She drew in a deep breath of cool air and let it out slowly. "We're here," she said into the dark, though no ear could catch it. "We're trying." Up in their shell, the probes turned slowly with the world. Night after night, like a thin ring of distant lanterns, no one could see, and under their watch, on a small blue planet, people went on with their lives arguing, loving, breaking, fixing, while carrying, lightly and heavily at once, a shared part in holding the shape of reality itself.